Hi ladies, I am hopping on for a little impromptu discussion of a couple of things in light of what has kind of come up this week in Stronger Together. Hope you guys are having a fantastic afternoon, evening, morning, whenever you get a chance to watch this. So the two things I kind of wanted to chat about, first of all, are pedestal foods, and then we'll talk a little bit about strategies for meal planning and meal prep as you guys kind of are figuring out your swing of things and some strategies that you can use to kind of streamline that process. So first of all, pedestal foods, I kind of want to piggyback on something that Sarah brought up in her video that she posted the other day, which, side note, is why I even thought about doing this video. I thought it was a great idea. So as we have topics that we want to dive a little bit deeper into, I think these videos are a great way to kind of share that information for you rather than to type it all out. So hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit more of these. Anyways, she brought up in some of the questions that she was asked this whole concept of sugar being, is it addictive, and how do we kind of, our thoughts and feelings on that. I fall into the camp that she does for the most part, is that it's not necessarily addictive, but it does have, you know, properties, especially these foods that are manufactured now. The best term I've ever heard for the concept of these foods that kind of trigger us to kind of eat more and more is foods with no breaks. That's something kind of coined, I think, by the Whole30 community. But I just like the thought process. It kind of helps us to understand how some of these manufacturing companies, they intentionally formulate products in such a manner that it doesn't hit your body's satiety and saturation cues, and actually causes you to kind of keep eating it just because you don't ever hit any of those, the way that God's, you know, designed our bodies to actually, you know, get to a point where we're like, okay, that's enough of the sweet flavor, or that's enough of the salty flavor. They actually formulate these to the exact, you know, design point that they keep you eating and eating and going and going. And so I do just want to, number one, validate that there are properties of certain foods that definitely keep us kind of outside the normal design for control that's built into our bodies intelligently by our Creator. I also want to validate that there are certain foods for all of us that just are more tempting than others. You know, for some of us, that's salty foods, but for many of us, especially women, it's sweets. That just kind of is the tendency, it seems to be. And so I do kind of want to talk about, you know, not necessarily the sugar addiction. I do kind of want to clarify that first. The concept of addiction, of course, a person can technically be addicted to anything. It's easier to be addicted to some substances like alcohol and drugs and things like that. It's also possible to be addicted to behaviors. We know that from certain sin patterns, right? But sometimes it can also be a habit and not just an addiction. And I think that's a lot of times where we kind of fall into this pattern with food behaviors that we think we're addicted and we're really not. You know, there's research studies that say, oh, you know, the same parts of your brain light up when you eat sugar as when you're, you know, when people do drugs and things like that. Okay, well, the same part of our brain also lights up when we're in love or when we're engaged in an activity that we truly enjoy. So there's a little bit of, you know, manipulation on the part of some experts to say that these foods are actually addictive. Okay, just because the brain area lights up the same doesn't mean it's necessarily an addiction. So I just kind of want to clarify that technically there are probably people out there, just like there are people who have food addictions. Part of that is probably sugar, but I don't want the semantics of it to kind of blind you to the reality that it's probably more of a behavioral thing and just something that requires a little bit more cultivation of, you know, self-discipline and the fruit of the Spirit rather than just being at the mercy of these foods, which brings me to the term pedestal foods. So regardless of what those foods look like for you, again, could be sweet, salty, any of the above combination, pedestal foods are just that. They are foods that we've put up on a pedestal, and unless we do some work to kind of heal our relationship and our mindset surrounding these things, they can continue to perpetuate problems, especially if we are looking to enter a next level of freedom when it comes to enjoying food and not restricting and not overindulging, finding that healthy balance. And then also, that includes how frequently do we eat these foods? Do they make us feel our best? All of these things. But to get back to the heart of things, I really believe it starts in your mindset. What you are telling yourself about these foods matters. And that is specifically, stop telling yourself you are addicted to these foods that you're not truly addicted to. Again, it could be a behavior pattern, a habit pattern, and it just more, I would say 95% of the time at minimum, it's going to be about the way that you interact with these foods and the stories the narratives you're telling yourself about whether you can or can't have them, or whether you can or can't trust yourself. So the ultimate goal is to get to a place where you trust yourself around these foods. But to do that, you have to break out of this back and forth between all or nothing. I'm either, all out indulging on these foods because it's the Last Supper mentality. I've got to get it out of my system before they go off, off limits again. And then you restrict, and then you can only stand that for so long before you get your hands on it and you have as much as you can before it goes off limits again. So it's a scary process to try to move into a place where you're navigating that middle ground of, yes, I can have these foods. I can have a sensible portion, a mindful portion, something I enjoy without guilt or shame afterwards. It doesn't make me feel bad because I've eaten too much of it. And also I'm able to kind of design with the Lord what this amount and frequency looks like, and that may vary depending on what season you're in. So depending on if you have, some weight loss goals, some health goals, or just maintaining where you're at, that can change over time. But again, the major thing to take away from all this is to stop telling yourself these things are in control of you versus you being Spirit controlled, Holy Spirit controlled. The Lord is in control of you, and you therefore are able to make wise Spirit-led decisions about these foods, how often to include them, how much is reasonable, and all of that. Again, I want to validate that the struggle is not insignificant, okay? So, these foods that you may feel like you're addicted to, again, stop telling yourself, stop using that exact word, but these foods, you've got to learn to build self-trust with them, and ultimately that starts by bringing them in a, predetermined amounts. I dive deeper into that into some blog posts on Dashing Dish, so I can always reference those if needed, just because I don't have time to cover it all here. But, my point being is that, gosh, you can hear all the birds in the background. Sorry, I'm outside because this is like the only quiet place I can go. Hopefully that's not distracting. But, the ultimate goal is to get to a place where we're Spirit-led and we can include them in reasonable amounts, frequently, in a frequency that we designate is appropriate for us. And that, again, may change as you learn to build more self-trust. It may require you removing them from the household for a period of time and only, having, say, if ice cream's your thing, not keeping it in the home, going out once a week and enjoying it with your family. And then once you kind of feel comfortable in that, being able to, enjoy it once a week in a designated portion at a designated time makes, you've pre-planned it, so it's not spur of the moment, which means you're less likely to have guilt, and it can be factored in, so it becomes part of the plan instead of a random, deviation from it. After that's comfortable for you, maybe you try bringing it into the house and keeping it in the freezer for a once a week, treat again, and being able to trust yourself around it in that designated amount, even though the full container is in your freezer at all times. It's a gradual process, but the self-trust where we are relying on Holy Spirit in us instead of white-knuckling it, which is this illusion of control, is the key there. Something else I do want to mention, especially for those who are like, okay, Casey, this is fine. I am okay with the idea of including sugar, but, what if I want something every day? And obviously sugar is not going to set me up for success at this point in time in whatever, health or body weight goals that you have. That's fine, and it's fine to have those, as long as it's stemming from a place of, you know, not saying I'm going to be happy when I've achieved these things, but being happy, accepting of your, it's okay to have goals to improve your health and, maybe your physical appearance, as long as it's not overshadowing the things that truly matter, and it comes from a place where you can do that with the understanding that it's not going to solve your problems, it's not going to be the thing that makes you happy. Anyways, that's just a side tangent. So, for me, dessert every day is a non-negotiable. It just won't be a real sugar dessert every single day. I'm the type of person, when I do have that, I do want to have, I don't just want like a little, like Sarah, for example, mentioned that she can do like a couple squares of dark chocolate and be so satisfied by that and have the real, healthier chocolate bar every day with a little bit of sugar and it's fine. I am, and everybody's different. I'm one where when I have the real dessert, I want to have the full serving and I want to enjoy it. But I also can't do that every day. I won't feel my best. And so it's a non-negotiable for me. I will plan dessert into and account for it in my plan every single day, but it's not going to be the full sugar. It's going to be, something like what we have on Dashing Dish, a healthier option, something that utilizes, healthy sugar substitutes and things like that. So I do want to encourage you to still utilize those substitutes while you're also allowing yourself to have these other things in moderation. Okay, so I think that kind of covers what I wanted to talk about in terms of pedestal foods and the sugar addiction. Just, to wrap things up, these foods, when we put them on a pedestal because of the way that we tell ourselves we behave around them, they still hold power over us. And so that's where I feel like this misconstrued idea of sugar addiction comes in, not because they're truly addictive, but because our behavior and our self-trust has indicated to us that we're powerless around them. So the ultimate goal is to put nothing on a pedestal other than the Lord, to pull these foods off their pedestal by demonstrating that we can trust ourselves and, beginning to include them in a way that we lay out, our guardrails ahead of time with the Lord in order to set ourselves up for success. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have further questions, let me know. All right, the second thing I wanted to chat about was meal planning and meal prep. So all of you are sharing your wins and your successes and your struggles and all these things regarding, especially those who are new to meal planning. Something that comes up a lot during this time frame and has already come up this round in Stronger Together, this, it always, like I said, comes up early on because that's what we're focusing on in the beginning, is just how to approach this process so that it doesn't get overwhelming. Because right now it's going to be exciting because you're learning and you're sharing with one another and the novelty is still there and, you're excited about it. But 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road, things tend to kind of slow down and it gets to be a little bit more burdensome than it does to be exciting. And I don't want you guys to fall off in that process before you have a chance to really get your rhythm with what works best for you. So 2 strategies that I always talk to clients about is, number 1, you can take the approach of the lowest hanging fruit, and number 2, you can take the approach of the thing that gives you the most bang for your buck. So instead of trying to do everything all at once, you pick one area to focus on, you get that down till it becomes a habit, till it becomes easy and streamlined, and then you can always build from there, because the last thing you want to do is to try to do it all at once and then get burnt out and give up. So what I mean by the lowest hanging fruit is, what's the easiest thing to give you that small win that you can really add to your life without a whole lot of chaos or confusion or time and effort spent, but it's just the easiest thing to knock out. And so getting it down and consistent is not a major issue. So for example, it may be that snack planning is simple and easy because all you need to do is get something like fruits and veggies and have them chopped up and ready to go. Maybe some pre-sliced deli meat and, you eat that rolled up, or hard-boiled eggs. Something like that takes a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, a little bit of thought and planning, you know, along with the fact that you don't have to do a whole lot of prep work with it either. You know, you can get some lower calorie dressing or hummus or things like that to go along with it. Yogurt and fruit bowls, that's another easy thing for breakfast or snack. Things like that. So that's what I mean by lowest hanging fruit. Like, what is the easiest thing that's not going to require so much on your part that you know, it really becomes a struggle and a burden. The other thing, the other focus you can do is the most bang for your buck. Okay, so what is going to yield you the most return for the amount of effort, energy, time spent, all those things. So what meal trips you up the most? And by that I mean, like, which one derails you the most? Like, is it breakfast that you normally are rushing, so you skip it when you head out the door, and then by the time you get to work, you're at the mercy of whatever's in the snack room, break room, whatever? Is it dinner in the evening because, you know, you tend to pick something up on the way home because you just don't have the energy to think about, plan, prep dinner in the evenings? Is it lunch because, you know, if you don't pack your lunch, you end up again at the mercy of whatever's available on your lunch break within driving distance from your job, and you tend to maybe make, you know, a decision that doesn't make you feel your best to set you up for success. Whatever that meal looks like for you. So maybe it's not the easiest thing to prep, but maybe it gives you the most return for your effort spent, so that, you know, you have a great breakfast ready to go. And again, it can be something quick and easy. It doesn't have to be, you know, that you whip up pancakes and cook eggs and all that kind of thing. It can be that you throw overnight oats into a couple of jars the night before for the next couple of days. You know, lunch can be leftovers from something that you prepped earlier in the week. It can be something easy like a wrap or, you know, salad that you throw together. Dinner, it could be something that you throw in the crock pot. You know, whatever meal that is, my point, there are, you know, there's a way to make the most out of that thing that's tripping you up. And, you know, for most of us, it's going to be the thing that either, you know, we're turning to something that doesn't make us feel our best, or something that really isn't building into our health goals. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you have any questions about that, let me know. Praying that you guys have a wonderful end to week 2. Let us know as your coaches what we can be praying for you. You know, we pray for you guys every day, as specifically as we can. So if there's ever anything that you feel comfortable sharing with us, we'd be more than happy to cover you specifically, personally, for whatever need that might be. And if there's anything else that we can do, just let us know. All right, talk to you guys soon.